Hey everyone, this is the next episode of Not a Standard. I am so excited about this one, but also so intimidated because I will be sharing my story. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but I would rather listen to everyone else's story than to talk about my own on a solo podcast. And I know this may come as a surprise to many because I share my story a lot on social media, but the only reason that I really do that is just to inspire others and to show them that you don't have to have a standard life to just say screw it and change your life's trajectory. I know what it feels like to feel stuck and to be in a bad place and not see a way out. And I really hope by sharing my story that it inspires other people to just try their hardest and say screw it and do the things that they fear. With that being said, I'm gonna share my story on this podcast because I feel like if there's one thing that I've said in the past, I wish people would understand the context of my story and not just judge me for the way that I looked or my appearance in the past. It was a lot more than an eating disorder, and I think that's something that many others can relate to. Everyone has a different struggle and a story, and there's always context behind their story. And it's important to listen and not assume. So with that being said, I have to read this disclaimer, which is kind of ironic given my story. But anyways, bear with me for a second. So the Not a Standard podcast is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional diagnosis or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. And this is ironic because I healed my body entirely using food and fitness without the medical system. But anyways, getting ahead of myself. So I'm Michelle, and I grew up in a traditional family. I had a mom and dad and two older brothers. We used to go camping up in Lake George. I love Lake George and Montauk. And I grew up in New Jersey. Everything was perfect until it wasn't. My brother was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 5 years old. And while it was supposed to be his diagnosis, it ended up affecting the whole family. And what I mean by that is that after he was diagnosed, our foods changed immediately. We went from having chicken fingers to grilled chicken, broccoli with cheese to steamed broccoli, maple syrup to healthy sugar-free syrup. And not only that, but I'd watch my mom meticulously weigh out my brother's food every single meal. And when he would say that he was hungry, she would say that he would not be able to have any more because that's what the doctors had kind of told her. They said that he had to have a certain amount of carb content per day, and that if he was given more, then his numbers would run high, which isn't good for health. And if he was given too little, his numbers would be low, and that would not be conducive to health as well. So as a result, as a 5-year-old watching this, just imagine your 5-year-old self. I thought that it was healthy to restrict food. I thought it was healthy to be hungry and not eat anymore. And I just remember even just going to the grocery store with my mom, and I'd pick up syrup. She would be like, no, that's not the right syrup. Get the healthy version, which was the sugar-free version. So I grew up with good and bad foods and healthy and unhealthy foods and all those connotations around food. And as a result, I just really wanted to be healthy, just like my brother. But what I realized was that what was healthy for him was not healthy for me. And it led me to a lifelong journey about a relationship with food. And then you add on just everything else. You add on social media, you add on magazines, you add on, Special K diet and low-fat diets and everything that's kind of promoted. And you kind of just have this disaster in the making. It's just like teaching people the wrong way of eating. It's complicating something that should be so simple, food. So with that being said, I went through a food jags like for the longest time. And by food jags, I mean like eating the same foods. Like I would go through a stage where I'd eat like a potato with fat-free sour cream for dinner. Like that is not dinner. I would go through a stage where I was eating salad with fat-free dressing and grilled chicken. And like that's not dinner for an adolescent girl. Like you need to have like healthy fats to really live well and be healthy. And I didn't really understand, because at the time, low-fat diets were being promoted everywhere. And I can't even explain like what it feels like to have a disordered relationship with food and to go out with your friends and try to find like the lowest calorie or the healthiest food option that there is. Like I feel like as a kid or even as a teenager, like that's kind of like an interesting and like odd position to be in. And it felt like it for me. Like I felt like I would go out with friends and I wouldn't enjoy the experience as much because I was worried about the food. And I went through this period of time where like I don't know how to explain it. I just didn't really have a healthy relationship with food ever since my brother was diagnosed. And when my parents got separated in, I think it was senior year of high school, like I used fitness and food as a way to deal with stress. Like all I wanted to do was be healthy and to be happy. And I thought that by running on the treadmill at XYZ speed on XYZ incline that I'd be healthy or get healthy and get those 6-pack abs that I've always wanted. I thought that by eating egg whites for dinner every single night, like I'd get the protein that I needed and lean out, because that's what the magazines had told me. But in all reality, like throughout senior year, my weight dropped dramatically. And I started having to go to a nutritionist and a therapist, and didn't really help at all. And eventually I was given an ultimatum from my high school that I would need to go inpatient or like not finish senior year. So I didn't really have a choice. Well, I had a choice, but it wasn't a very good one. So I ended up going inpatient for anorexia. And it was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. Like it was just very, very hard. And in all honesty, I feel like going there, it was just very inhumane. Like there wasn't much humanity in an inpatient facility in the hospital. But the first day that I actually got there, I went to a meeting, and the girl at the meeting said that she wanted to die. And I just remember getting done with that meeting and going to my room and calling my parents and crying my eyes out. Like, I don't want to die. Like, where did you put me? Like, I don't want to be here. And like, I wasn't really left with a choice. Like, they would not let me get out because my high school said, I had a choice. Like, I could either go inpatient or just not finish senior year. So I had to wait it out, and it was an experience. In inpatient care, they have this whole binder that they give you of rules and regulations. And some of the rules and regulations while you're there, it's just like crazy. Like you can't cut an apple in more than 4 pieces. And you can't heat your food for more than 30 seconds. And you have to eat your whole entire plate within 30 minutes, which for many that are on like 2,000, 3,000 or more calories. Like, that's just insane. Like, to try to rush through a meal and not really enjoy it or try to enjoy it just to meet the regulations. You also could not look at people when you're eating. You could not talk about numbers, so whether that be weight or calories or anything of the following. And essentially, like, there's just so many rules and guidelines there that it's kind of impossible to really balance and learn how to deal with the real world when you're in there. The structure of inpatient, for those that don't know, by the way, is that they wake you up early in the morning, you put on a gown, and you wait outside in the hallway, and you get taken one by one, and you get weighed. After you get weighed, you get dressed, and then you wait outside for, I think, your vitamins or prescriptions or whatever you're on. And then eventually you go out and you have your breakfast. They bring out your meal. Like I said, you have to eat in a certain amount of time. And they would mark you as either complete or not complete. And then you would go through group sessions and one-on-one sessions with a nutritionist and also a therapist. And it was an experience. It was definitely an experience. I think the worst part of it all, well, there's like a few of them, but one of the worst parts was that they gave you like a 5-minute walk. Like, that was your workout for the day. They did not show you how to balance food and fitness. I think another hard part was just being woken up in the middle of the night with a flashlight to make sure you're alive. Like, I think that was a little hard. And I think another hard part was that they'd like make you have ensure if they needed to bump you up in calories for the day instead of giving you food. And I think just based on like everything that I've researched and everything that I know about food, like, I feel like they should be giving you healthier food options that are conducive for mental health, things with probiotics that have been shown and have been studied to be very important for anxiety and depression and mental health illnesses. They should be focused on gut health instead of just giving you all the processed stuff, especially if you're dealing with an eating disorder. But I have lots of thoughts, like, based on, going to school for medicine and nutrition. But I'm going to leave those for another episode, hopefully with somebody that has credentials and all of that. But anyways, so I went inpatient. I got out, and my mom knew that I wasn't ready to get out. And she called my health insurance, and my health insurance company told her that there was nothing that they could do because I hit like a certain percentage of my ideal body weight, and that the only way that they'd be able to cover more inpatient was if my kidneys or liver failed because I didn't eat enough or damaged my body. And so I got out and I relapsed pretty quickly. Like, I got out, and the first thing that I wanted to do, of course, was work out. And I wanted to just feel good about myself. And throughout that summer, like, I just kind of focused more so on my health and all of that. What I didn't share is that that summer was my last summer before college, my first semester of college. And of course, naturally, and as you can guess, it didn't exactly go well. What made it worse was that on the day of or the day before that I went up to school, my mom got a call that the divorce papers were sent out by my dad. And yeah, I went to school, and instead of feeling loved and feeling like my parents cared about my health and feeling like I could handle food and fitness on my own, I felt completely the opposite. I went to school and I struggled a lot. And for many of those who have gone to college, college is a lot about like socialization. And a lot of the social events include food. So I feel like that was definitely a hard thing for me to deal with. Outside of just that whole experience that I just shared, my house, I didn't know if I was gonna be able to go back to it or not because of just like my parents' separation and everything else. So I just had a lot of stress on my plate. And that with taking like biology, chemistry, like all of the pre-med requisites, like it was just a lot. It was definitely a lot for me. And so I just struggled. I struggled the whole semester. I like lost weight. I got anxiety attacks, panic attacks. It was a lot of fun. But it wasn't the traditional college experience. I'll definitely say that. So I finished my finals and I was ready to go back home. I was so excited. And the day that I got home, I met this guy at my house. My mom was dating him at the time. And I don't know, there was just something about him that it just didn't feel right. And long and behold, it ended up being very abusive. There was a lot of stuff that happened that should have never happened. And I actually ended up taking a medical leave from college for my second semester because I didn't really feel safe with that guy. And I didn't feel safe leaving my family. And I wasn't really doing well with health. And I wanted to do better. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be able to have the college experience. So I checked myself inpatient again, thinking it would fix everything. And to be honest, it was a Band-Aid solution again. And I ended up getting out. And this time I went home to an abusive situation. Just did not work out at all. It was not good. And yeah, it just wasn't good. I think I'll talk about it in a later episode, but for now I just know it wasn't good. And I ended up having to move houses in the process, which was not fun because once we moved to the new house, like he thought it was his house and he thought he made all the rules. And yeah, I get locked out of the house a lot. I get cursed out a lot. He would like set plates out for everyone else except for me because he knew like I struggled with an eating disorder. There was a lot of stuff that happened that was so wrong, like so wrong. And yet like I kind of felt stuck in that situation, like there was nothing that I could do about it. Lo and behold, I kind of waited it out. I mean, every single night I was just getting upset, but waited it out. And eventually the cops came and cuffed him out of the house and gave a restraining order. And yeah, that's the end of that situation. But, you know, at the time I was still struggling. I ended up going to community college for a little bit. And I did it until I couldn't anymore. And I needed to go back to UVM. And I went back to UVM, took a few more medical leaves, and then I eventually graduated with a BA in biology and nutrition with a whole entire award given to me, which is kind of ironic and kind of awesome as well. You know, just thinking about the experience of graduating, I can honestly say that I'm not really sure if I'm more proud of getting like the award for being one of the top students and taking pre-med classes and getting a 4.0, or if I'm more proud of just surviving through what I survived through, the anorexia, the abuse, the anxiety, because that was really tough to go through. Like I'm already getting emotional because I just remember what it felt like. So I graduated and I was still struggling a lot. Like I was having like protein bars for lunch, which is not healthy at all. And I decided to go back to help. And I had to go see a therapist, a dietitian, and a doctor. And I love my dietitian. Like she was awesome. She was the only person that I ever really trusted, and someone who really wanted me to thrive, and someone who finally like understood. And My therapist, on the other hand, was not the same. I feel like all the therapists that I went through were terrible. Like absolutely terrible. And it ultimately ended up turning bad because one day I went in and they told me that if I lost half a pound in a week, that they'd no longer be able to see me. And they made me sign a contract. My mom was there, and the next week I lost like half a pound, and they actually kicked me out, even though the contract said a pound. And besides the point, at the time, what I did not share is that I started eating more. And as I started eating more, my metabolism sped up like a crazy amount, and it's an actual thing. And yeah, I lost weight. And I did not wear bracelets to change the weight on the scale. I did not water load. I was honest. I truly wanted to get better. And I was doing everything that I could to eat more. And they should know in treatment that when people with anorexia start to eat more, their metabolism increases, and that it's not anybody's fault if they lose weight. Like, that's just crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. So anyways, I was kicked out of not only my therapist, but my dietitian. And I lost all forms of support. And that was so hard. That was just so hard. I just remember getting kicked out and doing all of the work, like eating more, like eating a lot more. And just being like, if the hospital system that's meant to heal gave up on me, then maybe I should give up on myself as well. And in that moment, like, it wasn't really a moment, but it was a moment, I realized that if it was happening to me, it was happening to many others. And so I decided to say screw it, and decided to do everything in my power to heal using food and fitness. And I ended up getting into If It Fits Your Macros, and I ended up incorporating strength training, and I ended up facing my fears with a lot of food in order to increase like the variety of foods that I would eat. And over time, like, I healed my body entirely using food and fitness. Like, I had esophageal ulcers. I had thyroid issues. I didn't have my period for like 9 years. And I was able to heal entirely on my own using food and fitness. Like, that's incredible. But what's even more incredible is that after doing this, like, I was able to like work with brands and meet Elie Tahari and take a flight to California despite 9 years of not flying due to flight anxiety, and just basically start living the life that I really wanted to live. Like, I completely changed my life around. Oh, and I forgot my golden doodle. For those that follow me on social media, I love my golden doodle. But back to the point. Yeah, I honestly don't know if I'd be where I am today had it been just for the medical system and not for myself. And I think that's a scary thing to think of. I think it's really scary that so many people are going into treatment like a revolving door, like thinking that, you know, they'll be fixed. And it's not really about being fixed. It's about relearning what you learned wrong. And yeah, I hope if there's one thing that you get from my story, it's just that you have to be your own best advocate in your health. And you have to really, 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 really try. Like, because there's so much there's so much ahead of you that you just don't know about. And yeah, I'm getting emotional because yeah, it's just crazy to think of. It's just so crazy. But yeah, say screw it, do the thing you're scared of, and get the life that you want. And that's the message that I'd like to leave you guys with. So thanks for listening.